Good morning, America. How are ya? Monday Morning Rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world-famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. Today is Monday, and you know what we do on Monday? You guessed it. We do show and tell. Show and tell is always brought to you by Jelsma Graphics, the people that make all the railroad embroidery clothing. So when you want anything embroidered with railroad logos, you go to Jelsma.com. Jackets, shirts, hat, clubs. We do custom stuff all the time. We do one hat, we'll do 100 hats. Go to Jelsma.com and shop and shop. Today we have a very exciting show. I'm answering a lot of people's requests. Here at the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, our whole goal is to preserve the history of railroading in Jacksonville in a 50-mile radius. And that's what this museum does. We have a HO model of a 50-mile radius of Jacksonville, and we're preserving the history from 1937 to 1974. And right now we're operating trains in the mid-1950s. And the president of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum and I are going to walk around this layout and explain all the different places that we're preserving the history, and it's really neat, and it's such a joy to come here on Monday and on Fridays. Fridays we have running sessions, so we run exact, accurate trains for that particular date and time, and it's just real exciting, and we get everything kind of organized for Friday's run on Monday. But Rodney and I are going to walk around and explain everything, and that's been requested by so many people. We do have a complete video that was aired on the Ken Patterson show a couple of years ago. You could look in his library of what's neat in model railroad. And so with that being said, Rodney and I are going to give you a tour of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum. Monday morning show and tell is starting right now, and I have our fearless leader, Rodney Butcher. He's the president of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, and Rodney and I are going to walk you around, and he's just a living, walking history. So let's go right now, and Rodney, what is this area that we have right in here?
Well, first, thank you, Denny. I'd like to welcome everybody to seeing Jacksonville as we're depicting it in the 1950s. We're currently at the north end of the Florida East Coast Railroad, where it entered the Jacksonville Terminal Company. Lee Street Tower in the foreground is
this is right here.
Right. Controls that end of the terminal where the Atlantic Coast Line trains would come in and they'd swap power and put the FEC engines on.
Now, I see they got a business car here. This was kind of a track that was for dignitaries, or what was that?
It was primarily for standby for the office cars. There's, in this area, in reality, there was dining car supply.
And that was this building right over here?
Yes.
Okay, and then we have a hotel, we have a drugstore, and then this beautiful station that was made in, what, 1918?
1919. Now, along with the railroad, we try to have the historic businesses of Jacksonville. Denny mentioned the drugstore. That was Elaine Rexall. Rexall was the first drugstore chain to come into Jacksonville.
And I see we got a city bus there.
Yep, Jacksonville Coach Company. They started with trolleys, and then the Jacksonville Coach Company took over. And then in the 60s, the city took it over.
Okay, well, I've told the story many, many times to you guys that in 1968, I rode the city of Miami, and I got on the city of Miami here in Jacksonville on this station, and I was just overwhelmed with how great it was. Now, Tell us a little bit about the station.
Well, the terminal itself, we're on the east end, if you would, where the bottom floor had restaurants and lounges. The women's lounge and was on the front, and the men's lounge was in the back. There was a package store, and then the main waiting room had the huge high ceiling up until the 60s. And the other end of the terminal, identical to this in the exterior, was originally the black waiting room turned into a big baggage area.
Now, the back over here, this was where the REA and the post office and all that, right? Where they had
right. The little building in the back is the remnants of the old Flagler Depot.
That's right here.
They built the new depot over the Flagler Depot, and the terminal was actually extended 3 times. What we have is 1/3 of the actual terminal. The terminal had 26 tracks.
And there were, at one time I read it, how many trains a day at the height?
It's hard to say. There was over 100.
Isn't that
that's
amazing?
Passenger. That's arrivals and departures of passenger trains, not to mention the freight that came through.
Okay, and then there was an underground tunnel right here, right?
Yes. They called it the subway, and they had ramps up from the concourse. You walked down the ramp, and then you came up through the platform.
You're right here. I remember that, and distinctly. And this was the outside where the FEC trains bypass, or not bypass.
This area here actually had several tracks. There was two freight tracks through the middle. So when they extended the terminal, the freight tracks remained, and they built the new area beyond that.
I want to say real quickly, Rodney Butcher spent 44 years with the FEC as an engineer, and he is just a total walking encyclopedia of this area here. So when we come here, we get a history lesson every day, and it's just absolutely, we're just so blessed with that. Okay, explain to the Jacksonville terminal engine and the colors, and I think it looks like the Florida Gators.
It is. The original diesel actually had a gator on it. They had even painted their steam engines blue and orange.
Wow.
But I want to mention that my passion for the terminal is lifelong. When I was a kid in school, I'd spend my summers watching trains, and I got to know people that spent their whole life working here. And I've tried to represent their stories, and I've used their pictures, and all the knowledge that they've passed on to me, I'm trying to preserve and pass on to those that are interested. And there's just too much to absolutely give on a video. You know, it's a sit-down history, because you need to hear history from the horse's mouth, because the way it's depicted is one-sided. And I have multifaceted stories from lots and lots of people.
Well, you know, that gives me a great idea that we could just have a sit down and talk sometime, and I'm sure the viewers would really like that. But let's move on. This bridge here is a rep of what now?
That was the very first segment of I-95 in the state of Florida. And the insult that it was put over the throat of the railroads for the gateway to Florida.
Now, I remember this. This was the underpass, because I used to come here, because I first moved to Jacksonville in 1971, and boy, that area used to flood a lot. What this was? Explain this real quick. The Myrtle
Avenue had a trolley track running through the middle of it, and the terminal owned and maintained it. During the war, they had to put security guards to make sure there was no sabotage. But Myrtle Avenue's over the throat of the terminal.
And that's right in there.
massive track work.
Yes.
Massive track work.
I know. When I first moved here in 1971, I was just so impressed. Okay, this tower here, what was it?
Myrtle Avenue Tower.
Okay.
That was the main throat of the terminal. Most of all the passenger switching came through this end of the terminal.
Okay, and then we got Swift over here.
Yeah, there was various meat packing plants and industry. The terminal had a fair amount of freight industry, but our real masterpiece is our scale model of the terminal's roundhouse, which dates prior to 1919. That was built before the terminal.
And one of our members took photos and built that, scratch built.
He built it from blueprints. And the terminal is where the Jacksonville Transportation Authority maintains their buses now, but that facility lasted up into Amtrak.
Wow. And this is where when we bring a train in to the terminal and we switch power from Florida East Coast to the coastline. This is where we put the engines, and now, we have a hostler.
One of the downfalls of the terminal was the Seaboard Airline had to back in, and Coastline's trains to the West Coast and Central Florida also had to back in, and Southern trains terminated here with connections. But the main business of the Jacksonville terminal was Atlantic Coastline through trains to Miami over the FEC.
Okay, let's move on here, and we go to the west end of Jacksonville, and this is called...
We're now on the Seaboard. West Jacks was really the first railroad into Jacksonville from Tallahassee way, and the locomotive shop that you're looking at was actually one of the first diesel shops ever constructed, because Seaboard was one of the first railroads to mass purchase EMC E4 locomotives for the Orange Blossom Special in 1938.
There were E4s, correct?
E4s, correct. The difference between an E4 and an E6, the E4s had a fold-out nose door. The E6s did not have a door on the front. Okay.
See, little things like that we get to learn, and it's just really amazing. This here is just, we have some speeders, and this is the fueling tower. I would sit right here and watch trains when I first came to Jacksonville. I'd sit there for hours and watch trains. Just amazing.
West Jacks had a large roundhouse as well, but this was really modernized in the 40s when the diesels came in, but they kept the roundhouse. And the Jacksonville, for the Seaboard, most of their traffic bypassed Jacksonville through what they called the Gross Cutoff. The traffic that mainly came into Jacksonville from the west and from the north were cars for interchange in Jacksonville or traffic for Jacksonville. Tampa traffic and Miami traffic primarily bypassed Jacksonville through Baldwin.
Okay, what we have over here, Rodney, this is Simpson Yard, correct?
Yep, Simpson Yard. Southern was very remote in Jacksonville, and it was a small operation. So, representing the Southern Railroad, which is actually the GS&F and the St. Johns River Terminal Company, we're just displaying a similar view of their locomotive facility. They did have a roundhouse here also. But primarily, the Southern proper came into Jacksonville over the Atlantic coastline with trackage rights. The GS&F came into Jacksonville from Valdosta, and the Jacksonville operation was all handled by the St. Johns River Terminal Company, which was a subsidy of the Southern.
Okay, we have a lower level here, which our museum, we use that for storage, and we also run trains. We have a main line that goes right through here. We do run trains, so we really have 3 levels, and so and it is so complicated, this whole layout, that we're going to do about 3 segments to go through to really get the history and what we're actually doing here. And I think the viewers will really like how we're going to cut this up. And the next segment we'll do is next week for our show and tell, and we're going to do about another third of the layout, and Rodney will be walking with me and explaining all of that. We just thank you for watching us week after week. We're just absolutely amazed of the people that follow us, and we appreciate all the nice comments. And you can follow us on Facebook, is our most popular, and then also on YouTube. And with all that being said, that's the way it is at the world-famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, where running trains is an absolute pleasure. And that's the way it is.